has to specify which version it wants to speak, and that's a HTTP header thing. And so we added to it a second HTTP header that says, I want experimental HTTP header, and you try to call an experimental API, you get a 404 not found. I don't know what you're talking about. And all the APIs that were modified by the experimental API continue to work the way that they used to before the experimental modification was made. If they transmit the experimental header, then they can use the new APIs and the existing APIs that have been modified follow the new behavior. So the idea is when you add a new experimental feature, you would dump the microversion as part of that process because you're making an API change. Clients would have to both call the new API microversion and specify the header. And then assuming that you release the feature, everyone loves it, there's no problem, you know, some time goes by and you say, okay, we want to bless this and make it non-experimental. There would be a second step where you would bump the microversion again and take it out of the experimental status and it would just become part of the core API.
So did you guys put in the resolution to be able to specify in the call what version of that method you want to use?
Yeah, so the way microversions works is with every API call, you transmit the version that you want to speak. Okay. And in theory, you're supposed to always use the same version for everything. For a given client, because it would be weird to call the 1.3 version of this API and the 1.5 version of that API and the 1.8 version of that API all inside one application, because that means your probability of finding a server that speaks all three of those versions is much lower.
People do weird things. But.
Yeah, so technically you can do that. We would discourage it and say, pick a version and stick with it. And same thing, you know, either turn experimental on or turn experimental off in your application. Don't try to like call certain experimental APIs and not others, because then you're just, you know, you're going to confuse yourself about.
So one of the concerns I have is what are you doing as far as now you're going to have versions of your experimental APIs.
Yeah. So the principle of microversions is there's many different iterations of the API that you can call, and you pick the one that you want. And typically, any given microversion only modifies one or two APIs. So you know, for most APIs, all the versions give you the exact same behavior. But for certain APIs, it does matter. If you want a certain behavior, you need a minimum version or higher. Otherwise, the server can't do what you want.
So when do you kill old behavior?
Never. No.
So
it's a separate
code is going to be absolutely fun in the year.
Yes, but you can't kill old behavior now.
That's right.
Part of the problem with microversion
Hold on.
is all that code's in the client now, not in the server. So every client is going to have that.
Yes.
Well, the deciding of what to do, yes. But I'm going to have to, like with the experimental, supporting every version of the experimental stuff, I'm going to have all these decorators in the API code that's turning different things.
Yeah.
So surprisingly, though, it's not as bad as you might think. So this goes back to what I was saying before. The idea isn't that, oh, I'm just going to have these crazy changes, you know, in all these versions, and they're all completely different and everything else. That's kind of what I was saying before. Is you still have to write good code and design a good API.
Yeah. Right.
And so I work on a product that we do something similar. Right? We use version numbers, and things never go away. We started at version 1, and we're now at version 9. And the code's actually really clean, and the code in the clients that consume it is actually really clean, because we never truly broke anything. We just added things, and that's the key. The key is adding things is always okay, pretty much. Taking things away or changing signatures and stuff, you still can't do that.
Right.
Whether you have micro versions or
Well, the difference would be if we were doing, let's say, major version changes, that code can be completely segregated. It's easier to keep clean, right? What I've already seen happen in vanilla is with these decorators. You know, okay, so I have list shares, okay? Let's say, hypothetically speaking, okay, 1.0 returns these attributes. 1.1 returns those attributes plus 1. 1.2 returns those attributes minus 1. And it's like I've now got 3 implementations that depend on each other. So I need to find a way to dry that code up. And then what if I want to make a radical change? Or we're just going to say that no radical changes, you build them over time. I mean,
The more radical the changes, the more painful it is to maintain the code, so it's a built-in incentive not to make radical
exactly. So we're incentivized not to make radical
changes.
changes.
Already,
We already are.
yeah, that's not a change you said.
That's not true. I could make a new major version that is completely, I mean, I'm not saying we necessarily would do this.
Actually, no, you can't.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's everything is trying to say no. The TP says even if you add a version 9, version 1 still has to work.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but they're completely decoupled. I mean, hell, I could write the project twice and just have 2 versions.
I mean, I think part of this is a design and implementation problem, right? So
Yes.
one of the problems that we have right now is sort of just the way our API modules are laid out to begin with. We could probably put in another layer and decouple things a little bit more, and have a base that returns just raw JSON data or raw dict data, right? And have that be the only piece that actually takes a version number and makes determinations on what to do based on the response data. And then the view builders could go and figure out what to do correctly based on the version.
And that's kind of what we implemented in humility. I had to add like a decorator for view builders.
So why would you use decorating?
Or, you know, whatever, some way to
Oh,
just happen.
yeah. I just make it an argument, right? I mean,
Well, then you get crazy base stable targets like and sometimes that would be clean up at first.
well, I get, yeah.
Very situational.
No,
It does use the decorator.
I'm looking at this differently than that, though.
the decorators are how Nova did it, so we would.
Yeah, that's fine. But what I'm looking at is, so we add this lower layer that actually makes the raw call or whatever the hell it is, right? It forms a JSON blob or a JSON or a dict or whatever the data. And then we modify our view builders and stuff to be dynamic and actually search the keys and based on what's returned back how it's going for these ones, rather than going through and hard coding all one. That's one of the things that causes so many
It's
problems.
a domain layer pattern.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Is it a problem to delete all the experimental versions once you go final?
Well, yeah.
There's a debate about how we define experimental, and the question is experimental mean? How does experimental just differ from an incrementing API change? And you have to be able to delete it or change it, or else there's no point in experimental.
Yeah, I thought that was the original
API.
assumption,
Yeah.
is that
If
it
you
had,
can't, then it's just an API change. It's
Right,
not experimental.
otherwise it's not experimental.
Have you promoted anything yet from experimental to?
No, I mean, we just implemented it in L3.
Has anyone else done it besides me?
Not the experimental.
Okay.
Micro.
Microversions, Ironic has.
Have you made any statements about what backwards compatibility means with APIs?
Yeah, the statement is there is no backwards compatibility. Just use it
So
your
you
own
can
way.
remove an experimental API and
Completely.
I think that it's going to be here. We don't know if it's going to work. We don't know if
Yeah, I mean, the hope is that the API you ship as experimental ends up being the final version, and then when you promote it to the final version, you can continue supporting the experimental version. But if you do decide, oh, we screwed this up, and you get the big change, then you can decide, do we want to support the old broken behavior, or do we want to drop it? At least you have a choice.
you can decide whether you're going to keep that around or not.
Sure.
Depending if the burden of maintaining it is too much, then you just get rid of it.
and you're certainly with the implementation Manila has, you have to choose to use this experimental thing by saying experimental equals true. And so, that's your signing off on the waiver right there. If it gets broken later, you can't come crying because you knew it. That's the whole point of it.
That's what happened anyway, though, because it's the REST layer where you have to make that choice. Someone implementing a library is going to make that choice, and the app that gives it may not even know. That's where you're going to have to.
Yeah, but if you're using the Python vanilla client, you want to construct it with an experimental screw, set an option on it.
How many other clients?
That's where you know there's But someone's got to rewrite their client to make it send this.
Right.
So that's the person
So
responsible.
JCloud does that, and then your company using JCloud doesn't care.
You know, that's the whole thing. You can only protect
I
people
know,
from
I
themselves.
understand that, but you have to be aware that that's where the complaints are coming from.
And that's why you can't change the API anyway. It's just a question. Is there any way to change the API in a way where you're saying, this is going to change, this is going to break, we may remove this, and if not, then we throw up our hands and we're stuck with what we got now, which means very slow evolution. And talking about a V3 API is you know.
So honestly, that's kind of what extensions were supposed to be at the beginning. I mean, it's all broken kind of.
When I talked about the different implementations.
It is, and that's the thing, and that's why I was bringing it up, is you have the same issue no matter what. And I don't think it goes away. That's what I'm saying before. I don't think there's a magic bullet. There's no, hey, I'm going to do whatever I want. And I was actually looking at this not to solve the problem that you seem to have in mind. I was looking at this to solve a problem in terms of, hey, how do I put code out there for things like replication without people actually picking it up and start using it because it's not ready. It's not done. It's a long-term thing.
Right. Well, that's one use case for this stuff.
But what I'm saying is maybe the problem is maybe we're assigning too many use cases. Maybe we should narrow the use cases.
It's just like having a beta customer where you say, look, we're not ready for GA release of our product, but we want my beta customer to test this and give us some feedback, and we may change it before we go to production with it.
Then don't put it in our release.
Well, right, but that's experimental. It's just a way to sort of get it out there and say, this is beta.
So my idea was based on the Linux kernel of those experimental APIs, and the way of, trying to they don't know if it's going to stick, but they ship those. Right now, the person who uses it, and change their mind, your application was great. And that's not me. It's expensive. I don't see the problem with bringing people who made the choice to use the experimental.
Found my version per release, or do you allow 50
Per API change.
Every query change modifies the REST interface in any way it has to improve. So you don't care if there are 15 people. No. Right. You would expect there to be a few dozen. I don't know about that. I think we were very busy early. Did the Wi-Fi get in?
It's been coming and going. It's been really spotty.
Or the things like we need to talk about.
Yeah, so let's see. I guess it sounds like the general consensus is we're, sort of assuming we go ahead with macro versions, we want experimental APIs, right? So there is a question, I guess, someone was talking about different ways of actually sort of abstracting this in the client, whether it should be an experimental namespace in the URL, to the headers like Manila. Does anyone have any strong opinions on that?
Well, the fact that we've already run into situations where an experimental feature had to modify an existing API and do separate namespace isn't going to work that well.
Right.
Because you want to be able to modify existing APIs in an experimental way, otherwise you can't be writing code. I think that a header is the cleanest way to get that capability.
Sounds good to me.
Just one comment.
Yep.
It seems that the concepts of experimental APIs and microversions are completely different. And as you mentioned, having experimental behavior on an existing API just seems like a really bad idea. Because what happens to the next version of them? Like the next guy that comes along has to deal with your both experimental and non-experimental behavior.
Which got the user.
Okay, so your experimental version from 1112 has experimental behavior on an existing API. That means the guy that does the next API change to 1.3 has to deal with both of those, which seems insane.
So the key is that if people that never call the experimental version will never observe any API change.
So 1.2 just disappears when you run 1.3? I don't.
No. Well,
Insane.
for someone who doesn't transmit the experimental header, 1.2 behaves exactly like 1.1, and 1.3 behaves exactly like 1.1.
So I'm saying code in 1.3 3 has to handle both of those cases.
Oh, yeah.
Which seems insane. Why wouldn't the experiment
We change the
be walled up
implementation of,
completely?
we change the implementation of APIs all the time. We add stuff. And the,
It just seems like that seems like a version increment. That doesn't seem like anything experimental.
so here's like a concrete example. Like, I think we added a consistency here for sure. And one of the things we needed to be able to do is when you list the shares, you want to be able to say for each share what CT is it in. Now, getting that information is free on the surface because you have a model object and it has a CT in it. It's a question of do we return that at the rest layer or not? If we just say, yeah, we're going to return it because it's adding new information and it's not breaking anything, and we'll just put it in the version, we could do that. But if we later decide, you know what, CT was a big mistake, we want to back this feature out. Now we can't put the API back the way it was without changing its behavior in a way that could, in theory, break somebody.
Sure. I just think that seems like a different use case. That does not seem like an experimental API to me. That seems like a completely experimental feature that you want to tie into existing APIs, and that sounds way scarier than having experimental features with experimental APIs.
Well, you have to be able to change an existing API in an experimental way too.
And I'm going to totally argue that. I don't think that's true. If you really want an experiment, you may not want to use the same API. That's the whole point. It's an experiment. I think this is where backwards compatibility can bite you. If experiments are walled off, then it's a lot easier to say, you chose to use this crazy API, we will remove it.
But you're rolled off by the header. That's
No. I'm thinking, yeah, you're using the same code and you're changing behavior of existing APIs. It seems like that's not the same case as an experimental API, which, in my opinion, should be completely walled off. So you can remove it and not break anybody's existing client.
So what would you propose? A second share list API that says share list?
Absolutely. I want to run your experimental list API so I can see the cool experimental stuff.
The problem with that is then if you want to bless it as the final version, you have to force people to change again. You can't
Correct.
just,
You're always moving forward, and then it's another additional change to the existing API that has been promoted from experimental to real.
I think that's actually an
I think
advantage too.
that's more sane.
Nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely. Draws a bigger barrier.
Well, so yeah, an experimental API is a completely self-contained extension, if you want to use the term, that just does wacky stuff that you can just remove, not run that extension at all anymore, and you get your information from people using that extension or that experimental API, and if people like it, and everybody says, "Oh, this is great," you can say, "Hey, in our real version 1.1 to 1.2, hey, we just now have this CD feature that we really like, and it's no longer experimental."
Does anyone remember how that worked?
What's that?
Fixing to know
The version extension thing, it's never been a thing, right? It's never, I don't see the difference, but it just seems like experiments should be walled off. They should not mess with existing stuff.
So, I mean, is that realistic? Are these experimental APIs going to be able to be totally self-contained?
Well, you can do it. That's just going to be really funky. You're going to re-implement, list or create or whatever it is.
Why would you have to do that? You could wrap it.
Well, yeah.
You could wrap it. Just to catch whatever namespace
Yeah.
URL.
I mean, I guess I think experiments should be experimental. They shouldn't
I think we're doing too much of
they
it.
shouldn't change.
How often are we going to do this?
Yeah, keep in mind, this is probably like maybe one feature per release. If even, right? Yeah,
Well, this isn't a middle session.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's similar to the way we've done it. Well, in 4 years, I think we've run into this situation twice.
I think too, we should be like careful about when we do this, right? Like we shouldn't just every new feature shouldn't be experimental. Only ones that are legitimately like controversial and like, hey, seriously, we're not sure about it.
Just be very strict.
Yeah.
I guess I just want to, if you want to say that things are really experimental, then go back and say, no, this is always backwards compatible. I think if you do that, the point of being experimental is totally useless. If you want something to be experimental, let it be its own self-contained thing, and not change its behavior, be an experimental here. If it doesn't work out, you can go away. If it's great, you can merge it in.
I think you're confusing the behavior part of it. The only behavioral changes is you're giving you other information.
Well, also, I think those are silly, not silly, but I think those are like very simplistic ideas about what an experiment is. If you're changing the to return, honestly, I'm not interested in that kind of experiment. That just seems like a person making stuff.
For the ones that we've tried API so far. Typically, you add a bunch of new APIs that do something wildly crazy, but has some knock-on effects on the existing API. You need to return additional information.
Right, and in that case, if you wanted to run that experiment, I would create a new list called this experimental list called the data that you want to include in that experiment.
I think that'll just create more code churn.
Yes, it will absolutely create more code churn.
But it also creates a clean break between what's experimental and what's not experimental. When it goes away,
It's an ideological difference. I prefer that if my experiments be experiments, so I can actually remove them if they actually be train wrecks. And promotion from experimental to non-experimental is very explicit because you're moving this code from here, you're adding in a few things here that you change.
I think it's a fantasy that experiments are easy to back out. I think that
I agree. That's why I'm suggesting they be rolled up.
yeah.
I don't think you can do anything interesting without reaching deep into the code.
We can do this
That's fine. You can even if you want.
with the API.
Just don't change. Just don't change even.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, now you're talking. That's absolutely an issue. There's no question.
So do you have to design on the wall now as well?
I go hardcore on it.
Yeah, that's
So it's actually on the list of things is about TV changes for experimental features.
So yeah, the proposal that I made is only affects the REST API. Everything else is still ends up doesn't matter. Not mucking up the core of the code, and if you're unhappy with it, you're gonna have to clean up a very bad mess. But
yeah, just try not to make them that, right?
right.
Well,
Because then you're gonna have to
every,
change it.
everything
but
gets
at
scrutinized.
at least you won't have.
yeah.
It's I mean, you can think of these sort of bigger policy things. I mean, Corey's point is great, but you still have to decide, are we going to merge this in because it's a DB change, or the answer is no.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, it kind of goes back to what John was saying. Like, even though we have this, it's not a free pass to execute the code.
Yeah.
Right.
But we're not talking about the quality of the code. We're talking about the quality of the idea. Whether we.
Right.
Same difference, right?
No,
So-
absolutely
well,
different. Absolutely.
So the end result is the same, right? If we write code that we know we're going to rip out later, maybe we shouldn't merge that DB change, right? Whether it's
Or force you to use a different table. an
yeah,
experimental
exactly,
table.
yeah.
Also, connections between you and your feature and add columns to the table.
Not if you're wrapping if you're going to modify the existing call, which is what Corey is absolutely against and I'm against, then you don't have that problem, right? Because you have to create a whole new code path that uses the different database table or database.
It is a lot of work though.
It's a lot of work. Well,
It should be a lot of work.
It should be a lot of work.
I'm not saying I disagree with that. So that means if you promote it, you have to change a lot of migration, data migration, not just schema migration.
Well, except you're not migrating data from the experimental table into the
Well, you would if you
You
upgrade
would.
it. You would, yeah, absolutely.
If I was paying on the experimental thing.
I think we don't agree with that. I don't agree with that.
So yeah, one,
What's wrong with me?
No.
if you're talking about being more experimental API, you can train with that API can also go away.
Yes, exactly. The data, everything.
Migration from
Yep.
Okay.
Yes,
You can do
exactly.
that. You can change your existing table. You just drop the column on the existing table, fade it away.
That's possible. So maybe, I disagree with that.
Maybe it'd be useful to ask if we had this, 4 years ago, would we have ever used it in the last few years for
CG
replication?
replication, absolutely.
Would we have? And if we had, the ideas being bandied around work.
I'll say, sorry, but I'll disagree. I'll say, I would, because to me, it's just being that pain in the ass. I just,
That's why I'm asking the question, is would we have ever used this? And if we would, then maybe it's a good idea. And if we wouldn't, then maybe.
But isn't this also a case for when we only have 2 or 3 drivers implementing something? Why would we want to put this as part of the core?
Right.
Yeah. Are we really saying we want cinder representation or replication? I wish it was experimental.
Like replication is a good example, right? Because we want actually to get replication in, but we need to test it and we need to get the rest of the drivers implementing it if they can. And once they do, then there's a strong case to promoting it
and then it becomes part of core and a required capability. Yeah, and then we can get rid of this matrix, right? Which is what we want to do.
About application details.
I mean,
The API code is not first, part of, implementing and testing.
But that's
Why we want to so that you can test it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the whole point.
Okay, so that's sort of the big question is, would we use it if we had it for cases we know about instead of hypothetical things we're trying to imagine?
Especially with landing replication at the end of L3, we would have,
right.
it doesn't impact anyone then, right?
Well,
Mostly.
lessens it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we circled there for a second. Everybody still on board with experimental APIs?
Yes. Thumbs up.
Okay. So we talked about,
You have to choose to.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just about Tempest test.
Tempest
Tempest tests are usually skippable, so you don't usually skip those tests.
So this maybe it's a good transition to another topic, which Eric actually mentioned earlier. Is how do we test these things, right? We're going to do, like, do we go enable them all? Like, every experimental API has to be enabled in the gate, or we let them?
You write the test, you mark them skippable, and then you skip them for in situations where they're going to fail, and you run them in situations where they're going to pass.
And we have this test capability for this. I wrote a patch for manage unmanaged tests in Tempest. And you just make an option that says, does this driver support manage unmanaged? And then wherever that test is run, you just tell it whether you want the test or not.
Right. And I guess maybe this is a topic for microversion stuff. But if we have, let's say we have it was list shares and list shares with CGs, right? Do we need to run Tempest with both of them enabled, right?
Yes.
Do we double our
I
testing?
worked on this in Manila a little bit. What we ended up doing is making a different version of the test for each micro version.
Okay.
And it would explicitly test that version of the micro.
That's why I got the previous micro version.
Yep.
Well, and the QA had a session on this yesterday, where they were talking about how they, or I guess they're currently working on adding the ability to just have decorators that say run this microversion and that microversion for different tests.
Figuring out, you pick the boundary where something changed and the test is applicable, and you run it for both versions.
Yeah, you don't, I mean, you won't need a micro version, you won't need a test for every single micro version for every single test.
Right.
It's
That's what
just
they
any
change.
time that the API that test interacts with changes, you bump a new version of the test to make sure that.
Oh, it's not, I was just too many tests, but it's.
Well, I mean, like if the return or the input changes, then you would need to have a test. Or the background processing, really.
I'm not really.
That's one of the cons of microversions is your
tests
you have to need more tests to get 100% coverage.
Well,
I don't think anyone would argue against having 100% test coverage.
Well, the argument is that's coverage for every microversion. You're never going to deal with it takes 12 hours to run. If you have like 20 microversions, then you're calling so many APIs that you'll never.
It's not as many as you think, but it is more.
Yes, means putting changes. Not that everything changes on each one. The same text to we're already using.
But unless you test every microversion, how do you know it's actually going to work?
That's a fair.
I hope that somebody has to make some work, but.
Because someone eventually is going to ask for it and then not upgrade to the later microversions and then go right back where we are now.
If the microversion is the same, like in the API, it's the same as it was before, you don't need to test that one.
You don't know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because they could have indirectly, if I make changes to how shares are created, and I don't create shares to 1.3, you can integrate 1.2.
Yeah.
But if there are other man that's for low risk, right? You have to wait.
I think we're not.
We need to have this conversation.
there any other major questions that we need to at least people thinking of right now? Or
I think we pretty much covered them. I think scroll up. There's a list of stuff. Let's see. Any of these we didn't talk about? Like graduation a little bit. Yeah, pretty much. So I guess it sounds like we're pretty much agreed on using like URL namespace to really gate off these, correct? If we put that in a spec, no one's going to go minus to it.
and then there is a second.
Isn't Manila using a header instead
Yeah,
URL
so that would be a
namespace?
difference.
So
you're saying,
why wouldn't we use the same thing that they're already doing?
We should be consistent.
Oh my gosh, we just talked about this. So
Yeah.
the
I know, sorry.
argument was that we want further differentiation so that we don't have the feature that Manila does, which is that you have some API that you change as part of adding in, like you add a new experimental API, we change list volumes, right? That was the reason. So do we?
Okay.
I guess maybe we didn't come to a decision.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to the spec, people comment in there.
Yeah.
Okay. We need to capture that.
the real question is, should we write the spec? That's where we're at now. Then we could debate about the implementation details and how it's done.
So I think the answer is yes. We should. I think it.
If you need a POC, too. You might-
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we should be able to do that on top of the microversion chain pretty easily. Just put that on the system.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, because when I ported from Manila, they already had experimental, so I just ripped out the experimental part of the microversions and put it back in. It's pretty true.